Meanwhile, hi, this is Seb.
And this is Marcus. Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing? We are back. And what are we doing today, Seb?
Hot D. House of the Dragons, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. Now, firstly, we want to apologize for not having an episode last week. There was no reaction, nor was there a review. And that's because I am currently in Italy, which is why my background looks different, why I may sound like complete ass, because apparently they don't believe in internet and roads and technology in this country. I kid. I just didn't bring my kit. But all jokes aside, we apologize for that. And obviously this week, same thing. We're only doing a review. There's no reaction content, but I will be back in London this Thursday. So next week we'll be back to normal routines. But right now we're just doing a simple review of the newest episode 4. All right. Well, okay. Marcus, what did you think of this newest episode?
Well, I think right off the bat, I think the writing in this show is genuinely like on par with the first few seasons of Game of Thrones. I'm really enjoying this so far.
For sure.
I mean, I came to this show just like expecting to be disappointed, like season 8, but like I think this is like so good. I think the character development is there. I think the writing is just phenomenal. And considering like we're 4 episodes in, and there's like not a huge amount of action, I just love how this is very much Game of Thrones, where it is like a game of politics. I love it. It's really, I feel sucked into the world. I love like seeing what Daemon's up to, because he's like this. He is a very nefarious and very confusing character, and you still don't know what his motives are. And I think this episode like took things to a very weird, I mean, Game of Thrones level. Like this episode is literally it was just like House of the brothel and incest. But I actually do think that scene where Daemon and Rhaenyra are unfortunately like getting it on is actually so well written, purely because of the parallel of her actually getting something that she, I guess, wants in that moment, and then you obviously have her best friend unfortunately getting molested by the king and not having a great time. And I think this episode really, really, really was awesome. I loved it, dude. Like, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like obviously episode 3, which again we didn't really kind of talk about as much, but episode 3 ended with that scene of Daemon being one-man army badassing, killing the crowd.
That was so sick. Yeah.
So I
all of the.
Nice.
Did you like all of the memes of Matt Smith breaking his back because he's carrying the season? Yeah. Like, it was just great.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, episode 3 was like, a lot more action packed, and it was sick to see it. But yeah, I agree. I'm liking the fact that so far House of the Dragon is a lot more kind of political shadow play, which I think is very much the theme of this particular episode. Was a lot of power dynamics, power struggles, and kind of about kind of the Game of Thrones, pretty much. I think like, yes, the incest was hella fucking disturbing. I was legit like, oh god, we're going
very uncomfortable. Yes, very uncomfortable.
But like you said, it was very much like, underneath that, it was a lot of kind of like, okay, there's a shadow game going on here. Which is, one of the main points I guess we're gonna talk about today is basically who we think and what we think is going to transpire, right? Because I feel like this episode, I think throughout I was kind of like, right, Daemon's up to something. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the Hand of the King's name? I'm calling him the Wizard. Otto.
I have to say though, in your notes, you call them the Lizard Spider-Man.
Exactly.
I have to say though, like it was great just to see Otto finally being called out by Viserys, but it was also really annoying how it took 4 episodes and like a stern chat about incest with his daughter to finally be like, oh my god, this guy's been playing me. But I think it does show, I think they're showing really well how inept Viserys is as a king. And I think, to be fair, like, I think we haven't, we didn't do an episode last week, so we hadn't really discussed episode 3, but I think it's really important to mention how episode 3 showed really well the difference between Daemon and Viserys as characters. Yeah. And I think Viserys, in killing that stag, it showed that he's incapable of killing by himself. He needs others to kind of help him get there. And he wasn't willing to kill that stag. Whereas you have Daemon, the second he gets word that his brother's coming to help, he's just like, I won't have that. I'm going to one-man army this. And then tears the crab eater in half, which I know a lot of people online have been like, oh, like I was waiting for some kind of climatic showdown. I'm like, I don't really care. I just thought it was sick that he just tore him in half, because I think it shows the true power of a warrior he is. Like, it just shows how good of a warrior he is.
I think what last episode with the crab feeder and this episode, and the show so far at least, has been a lot of expectation subversion. Like for me today, my expectations were subverted when Viserys actually called Otto out, like you mentioned, because I didn't expect that of him. Mind you, he only called him out of the incest thing, where I feel like, like he said that kind of out of defense, but we obviously know from our perspective, it's very obvious that Otto is pulling strings and shit.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Viserys, it wasn't really him being aware. It's kind of him being strict, defending himself, if that makes sense.
I would say that I would also say, I would go further to say that Viserys only called Otto out as a compromise. So Rhaenyra would finally just get married to someone. Exactly. But I think, again, it just goes back to, I think in one of the earlier kind of reactions we did, I think to episode 2, perhaps, I think you specifically said something about Viserys along the lines of he's a bit of a coward.
He's inept.
He's
a coward.
He's content. And I do believe, when you look at a bit of the lore of Songs of Ice and Fire, Viserys is remembered as the king who was he never wanted to go into conflict, and he was more interested in big parties and big gatherings and kind of entertaining people. Unfortunately, I would say, because I know we want to kind of discuss the future and where we think this is going to go, is I've unfortunately read the future of Rhaenyra out of just sheer stupidity.
I've heard of this as well. I've heard of, but I'm refused to.
It's bad, man. It's bad.
I've heard of this, but we'll get to that in a bit, because I do have a note on the princess at the end, but. I'm interested in seeing. So I'm just kind of looking over my notes right now. I'm very interested in seeing what Daemon's plan is, because in our last review, obviously we were saying how the lizard, aka Otto, is obviously, he's like a Palpatine-esque character, right? He's like Littlefinger. He works in the shadows and he's pulling strings. And there were certain points in the episode where I was like, is Daemon in cahoots with Otto? But then now I think it's pretty obvious that Daemon is doing shit on his own accord. Because when, he pulls off Rhaenyra's disguise / hat when they go into the brothel, at that point I was like, it's because he's working with Otto so that Otto can spy or whatever. But then afterwards I was like, maybe... I think it's more like Daemon knew that Otto would have spies, and that's why he took it off. But he's not actually in cahoots with him. So I think Daemon's definitely up to something. He was so sus the entire episode, right?
Just showing up like that. Yeah. To me, I see a lot of parallels between Daemon and Cersei. I think that obviously in later seasons you realize that Cersei is genuinely a maniac, and she has no regard for anyone but her own family, direct family, and saying that. I think Daemon, we're still yet to see his true intent. I do believe that all he cares about is he's power hungry. I think that's the one thing I can say with confidence, that he wants to be king. I do agree that the whole episode when you sat there, it's if your Uncle Daemon showed up and you knew he wanted to usurp your father, Like, would you really just follow him in down some secret passageway?
And
I was just a
think
bit like,
that's the
it's uncomfortable.
That's the perfect segue. That's the perfect segue, I feel, too. I feel like Rhaenyra's is hella fucking stupid. Maybe
Yeah.
not stupid, maybe naive, maybe, but like, okay, but nah. It's
I
like
think I think perhaps she wasn't thinking. I don't think she understands
Yeah.
the impact. Like, she doesn't have the gift of foresight. Like, she doesn't. She
doesn't
does things
understand
in the
repercussions
moment.
of her actions.
Yeah, exactly. Like at the
and I
beginning of the
guess-
episode, she's like, "I Siebes, I'm not interested in seeing this long
Yeah.
line of men."
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, well, if you really want to be future queen of the realm, you kind of need to do these things.
Exactly.
I'm still waiting for the time jump as well. I really want to see what happens.
A lot
It's going to be
of fans
interesting, man.
obviously are kind of torn over because we are coming to really like, you know, the actress for Rhaenyra.
Dude, I think Millie Alcock and Emily Carey are like just so on par, man. Like, the acting is incredible. I think Millie is killing it, especially because this is like her first big show as well. Like, this is just the acting, I have to say, across the board is like is phenomenal. There isn't for a moment where I felt like, oh, that was delivered a bit poorly or anything like that. The writing is just superb.
For sure. But I think that's like the perfect segue to Lady Alicent, who I feel was very much, we had a lot more focus on her this episode. And
you're feeling for her, dude. She reminds me of Sansa.
Yeah, for sure. But I also feel like she's definitely going to have a very big role to play in this show, because I feel like something in her eyes, and so again, credit to Carrie's performance, something in her eyes or something in her aura makes you think that there's something going on. And if she truly is the daughter of Otto, whom obviously this episode got called out, but we know he's a smart man. He's playing the Palpatine game. And I feel like she's got that in her as well. So I'm waiting. And I guess, like you said, she is very much in that Sansa kind of situation where I feel like she may come out and be like, I'm actually a player of this shit as well.
I have to say, I think now that Otto is being kind of like dethroned as the hand, this is when something in her will snap. Or something will, like a light, something will switch on in with her. And I don't even think it'll be Otto who's like, you need to do this. I think something in her will be like, wow, okay. I've been betrayed.
I'm very intrigued to see where her character will go, because like throughout this episode, she's shown on so many occasions that she's very smart. Like when she tells Rhaenyra, oh, you shouldn't have put yourself in that situation where your enemies could use this when they were in the brothel, blah blah. Or again, it's just like throughout the whole,
just advising Viserys,
advising the king, advising Viserys. But I feel like she's definitely someone to watch. She's like one to watch for sure.
I think the time jump will show what she's become. I think we'll get a much more like politically minded player in the future, because I think you're right. She has the ear of the king. She's also the king's wife, and I think Viserys does actually love her very much. Fucking pedophile. But like, I think again, it's like we're 4 episodes in, but we've seen so much character development, and we still haven't seen anyone's true intentions yet. Like, I think the only person's intentions that I truly know is Viserys wants his daughter to, be the queen, and he's no fucking idea what he's doing. He's just a coward. And then Rhaenyra's, I don't even think she knows what she wants, to be fair. Like, I think she knows what she wants to be queen, but I think at the same time, now that it's becoming more of a reality and things are happening, I think she's not willing to accept that she kind of does need to do things in a certain way if she really wants to become queen. And like,
which is why, like, I think this show could potentially be. I mean, look, I feel like Rhaenyra as a character is such an interesting character, because like there is such a huge part of her where, yes, obviously earlier in the video I was saying how she's a bit stupid, etc., but she is a teen. Well, in the show, she is a kid pretty much.
Yeah.
And it is and you mentioned there were moments in, I think it was episode 2 or 1, where you kind of see her acting like a ruler, like a ruler with power, the way she dealt with Uncle Daemon So there are flashes of brilliance and there are flashes of this very strong character. I mean,
Yeah.
here's a girl that's obviously kind of like challenging the gender roles, challenging like the norm and challenging um what is expected of her, which always makes for a good story, right? We always love an underdog. We always love
Yeah.
basically another Danny, which is again mirroring my sentiment for my last from my last video, which is I hope that we're gonna get something other than just Danny 2.0. And I still think this because which is why I feel like her story could potentially be so interesting. Because we could either
Yeah.
get something new and exciting and really good, or we can legit just get another rehash of Danny, which I'm not a fan of. I wouldn't want to see another Daenerys storyline. So I think
I
it's very
personally don't
interesting.
think we will. I think Rhaenyra is going to become her own character. I think, there are so
I
many
hope so.
parallels at the moment with Dany.
Mm.
I mean, I think, to be fair, a lot of the characters have parallels with many
sure.
characters
For
from
sure.
Game of Thrones. But I think,
For sure.
we're only 4 episodes in. It hasn't bothered me too much. I think with Rhaenyra, there are moments where I'm kind of like, you are being a bit juvenile, but then again, she is like a juvenile. That's why I have to remind myself of that, which makes the incest so much more creepy.
Oh yeah, God.
Like that was one of the most uncomfortable things I've sat through in a while.
Perhaps that's what the writers are. That's what they want is for us to make those parallels to then subvert. So hopefully, that's what's going to happen.
I genuinely wasn't expecting Daemon to stop. Like, when he pushed her away, I wasn't expecting. I was getting ready for some weirdness. I mean, it was already weird, but I was getting ready for it to be really weird. And then I think it's important to mention that I think Rhaenyra also put Sir Cole in a really uncomfortable spot. Like, obviously, I called it ages ago. Like the second that she chose him as
there was that chemistry.
Yeah, it was chemistry, but at the same time, this poor guy. It's Game of Thrones. Like something horrific is going to happen to this guy. And it's going to be heartbreaking.
I have that in my side note, which is saying the Kingsguard dude is gonna die.
And it's really sad because
Prince Caspian's fucked.
You can just see, dude, legit, right? He looks like Prince Caspian.
Yeah, he does.
But like, I really felt for Sir Cole because I just sat there and I was like, I know you want to, dude, but like for real, man, you are putting yourself in the most you're dead, dude. Like you're dead. I was actually half expecting, to be fair, Rhaenyra, when confronted about like the whole Daemon thing, to be like, I was with Sir Cole. I was kind of expecting her to say something like that instead, to actually cover herself, because I feel like it's probably better to sleep with your Kingsguard rather than sleep with your uncle. But yeah, that's going to come back. Game of Thrones don't just show you Game of Thrones lore and shows don't just show you stuff like that unless it's important, because it will always come back and bite you in the ass. So ripe Sir Cole in advance. Probably die end of season. Probably die next episode. Who knows? It's Game of Thrones. Sorry, I keep saying it. I mean, it's Game of Thrones. It's House of the Dragon. It's Hot D. Because they're still using the Game of Thrones theme.
And obviously there's still so many kind of references. I mean, this like when Viserys was talking to Rhaenyra about the Song of Ice and Fire, which again, naturally it would happen, right? Obviously.
I sat there, I was like, roll credits.
This is a prequel series to that show.
Yeah.
But I think, as long, for me, it's my final thoughts on this episode, as long as they can make their own show and not have to follow the Game of Thrones kind of mold beat by beat, then I think they will have succeeded. I think it's a very difficult task to do, but I also have faith in the writing, because at the peak of Game of Thrones' writing, they really were some of the best writing of television history.
Agreed.
Now, have they recaptured that in this current show? I think they really have, and there are glimpses of that. So I have faith. When they're good, they're good. And that's why I hope with every fiber of my body that they can create their own show, their own characters, where you can see similarities with Game of Thrones, references to Game of Thrones, because obviously prequel, but with its own thing. Like,
Yeah.
the Star Wars prequels, as hated as they are its own thing, and they have their own beloved fan base. It gave us the Clone Wars, etc., etc. It's its own thing, even though it has references. So I just don't want a clone. I don't want a clone of the original show, and that's
Yeah.
all. That's my biggest thought.
I agree with that. I'm really excited for the time jump. I will be really sad to see, like, I don't know. Well, to be fair, they might go to and from. Who knows? We might have multiple time jumps within episodes. Who knows? I really hope we don't say goodbye to like Millie, and I hope we don't say goodbye to like Emily, because I feel like we've only just met them as actresses, but also as characters, because we're only 4 episodes in. It would be. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle this time jump, because it is a big time jump. But yeah, I'm really excited for the future of the series. We're only 4 episodes in, and there's season 2 already confirmed. George R.R. Martin's still in, and as long as he's still in, I'm still in. The second he's out, I'm out, because I don't want to be season 8'd all over again. In saying that, I think it's important to just briefly discuss, because I did realize the other day that Joffrey does actually mention Rhaenyra in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And he spoils her death.
Rhaenyra Targaryen was murdered by her brother, or rather, his dragon. It ate her while her son watched.
Oof.
Ooh, I mean, that's the most Game of Thrones shit.
Rough.
Like, it's rough, dude.
Yeah, it's this again kind of mirrors my sentiment and my kind of like hesitation towards prequels. Why prequels will always have that little bit of like, but we know how this may end, or we'll know who survives.
Yeah.
Slash, like, we know what's going to happen, or who's not going to die, who's going to die. There's always that thing.
Yeah.
And, in this case, like, knowing how she's going to die will obviously be somewhat of a foul taste in your mouth, for sure, because you're like, what's the point of all this?
Yeah.
And that will always be my issue with prequels. So it's always
but I would say I'm still here for the journey.
Exactly.
Because I'm not like I'm not like particularly versed in the lore. Like, I've not read the books because they're just too fucking big, and I'm lazy. So I'm in for the shows, but unfortunately the internet exists, and Joffrey dropped the fucking bomb. So like, it's unfortunate. I just know how she passes, but I'm interested to see the life that she lives and the decisions that she makes and the impact that she will have on the universe. And it'll also be interesting because we don't know how many seasons there are going to be, but I'm going to imagine there are going to be quite a few. I think George R. R. Martin being involved, he's going to be like, we're good. And HBO now realizing what they did by giving, like, season 8, what it is. But I think now they're just going to be like, as long as people watch this, because this is like one of, this is HBO's biggest thing at the moment. This is their biggest like entity. They're going to like keep this going until George R. R. Martin, I imagine, is like, okay, the story is going to end here. We need X more seasons. Basically a repeat scenario of what Game of Thrones should have ended like. I think we're going to get done justice here, I feel. Unless miraculously all the viewers disappear,
I really do hope so. And you're right. I think HBO, being HBO, aren't going to be so dumb as to repeat the same mistakes, or at least, we hope so. And we should, I guess we could also talk about the amount of the other spin-off shows that we're getting. We're getting the Sea Snake show. We're getting, like, I think, was it 7 other Game of Thrones shows?
There's a lot coming. We live in spin-off land.
Yeah, so it's a very.
There was that cancelled one as well, wasn't there?
Oh yeah, there is, with the actress that was in The Ring or something. But yeah, it's a very interesting time to be in the Game of Thrones universe. I'm glad that we are. It does feel nostalgic right now.
Yeah.
I think it feels nice and good to be talking about Game of Thrones again, when for the longest time after season 8, it was genuinely just such a foul thing you wanted to forget even happened. And even here in Italy, I was talking to some friends here, et cetera, and all of them have been like, I loved Game of Thrones, but I don't know if I want to start House of Dragon because what if it ends up like Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
So people remember how bad that ending was. So I feel and I do hope that HBO will combat this and prove us wrong. But I guess we'll see.
To be fair, HBO seldom make bad TV shows. Band of Brothers exists. I rest my case.
True.
I think that's all to say, really. I mean, I'm really excited for the rest of the season. We'll be back next week. We'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. Yeah, thank you for watching. You can find us on TikTok, Spotify, any other platform. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit us down in the comments below and tell us what you thought of the episode. If you hate us, I don't care. Tell us down below. Hit the notification button so you don't miss any of our content because we try and post weekly whenever we're not in Italy. Thanks for watching. I've been Marcus.
And I've been Seb. Peace.